90's car culture, then and now, 1996 to 2024. Hello everyone. For a little context, my name is Reagan, as many of you may know, and as I'm reading this is January 25th of 2024. I'm 42 years of age and I'll be 43 years old next month in February. I have a beautiful family of my own house, cars, motorcycle, etc. Now back to my story. The year is 1996. I grew up in a small town called Bonaparte, the home of Knott's Berry Farm and a suburb of Orange County in Southern California, USA. I got into the car scene at about 15 years of age by accident when an import car shop opened up across the street and made me wonder how cool that must be. I even got lucky, getting my first car as a birthday present from my mom, right before I turned 16, as I am a February baby, and the year-end sale was in effect in December of the following year, 2 months prior to my 16th birthday. Thanks, Mom. I found a used low-mile stick-shift 1994 teal Honda Civic EX Coupe from a car dealer in Alhambra, like 30 minutes away from where we lived. I found it in an Auto Trader magazine. It's a magazine to buy, sell, and trade used cars that was published weekly, and most folks bought it in their neighborhood liquor store for $1, which is currently only internet-based. I had also been hanging out in that new import performance shop called the Island Motorsports for the past year I previously mentioned too. I had also built up my Civic, got deeply immersed in the import car culture, worked shows and showed my Civic off at a bunch of car shows too, etc. I had since been kicked out of high school by my, quote, non-attendance due to ditching all the time after I get dropped off by my mom. It's not my mom's fault, obviously, but after some time she found out and said, quote, well, if you're making money, and then shook her head at me, which I understood meant she was upset. Anyways, enough of this intro. This isn't about my first car build. Sorry to say that, though. I will probably talk about it here and there for reference. And I'm sorry in advance, as I wish I had more pics of it too, but that was at a time when you actually needed a camera just to take pics or vids. And the pics I had of it I can't find at the moment. And the cell phones then didn't have cameras like they do now and did the last 20 years. What this topic is about is something I haven't really read or came across anywhere specifically, and when people are on these topics like 90's car culture, they don't speak about these types of things at all, really. These are the major differences that changed the car culture from the mid to late 90's versus the internet era, I'm going to call it. I'm also going to speak about why this happened actually as a byproduct of technology and basic evolution. So unwillingly, it was going to happen regardless. So, let me take you back to the year of 1996. If you wanted to know about modifying import or domestic automobiles, off-road trucks, motorcycles, etc., you basically had to buy magazines about it. And there were a couple good ones for any of those categories. In these magazines, you would see articles on everything from car shows with models and race events to what new parts were coming out, and small ads by the manufacturers. Performance manufacturers and shops were a small-knit community. Enthusiasts hung out with each other in car crews, or at the shops they were showing up. Mom and pop performance shops were about to become a common, quote, thing, and, quote, fast and furious, quote, and its never-ending franchise didn't exist just yet either. Since there was no internet-based performance parts shop yet, information at that time was mainly through magazines, seeing things in person and or personally being involved through actually having a race or performance shop, hanging out at one, or working at one. Modifying automobiles then was a much harder thing to do for the average Joe. It also cost more money, in a time when online entrepreneurs were barely a thing and most work was done manually. These performance companies were spending their money R&Ding products for the end consumer, and many had import fees added, so they wanted a premium price in the end products and knew they could get it. A market for copies/replicas at that time wouldn't exist yet, as things like eBay, virtual marketplace, didn't even exist, so performance parts also generally cost more due to their rarity and were harder to find across the board. The enthusiasts, in my honest opinion, were also more passionate about the car scene, many joining together and starting car crews. And in my honest opinion, you had to spend your own money to learn about it, meaning no YouTube to find out, etc. So you'd buy the magazines you needed to indulge in if you couldn't find out in person. The car culture was becoming more popular day by day and month to month then. The car shows were getting bigger and better, and you could see how many people would wait in long-ass lines for hours before a show would open each upcoming show. The police were also becoming aware of this car culture and were acting like one would think they would, busting us if we were too loud or too low. Most of these import cars had, quote, genuine performance parts from companies that hired legit engineers, fabricators, race car drivers, etc. to help produce these performance parts they were selling, as they didn't want a bad reputation for the high prices they were charging. They couldn't just grab an existing product and change the name, color, etc. and sell it. The enthusiasts back then wanted genuine parts, as it was a sign of being unique, and great comfort or effort was made in getting them. So that wouldn't work then. The rich parent buying their 16-year-old Ferrari stereotype weren't even like these days either, how it is almost common now. Back in those days at the car shows, you almost never saw exotic cars. The crowd was younger and less parent involved like now, as we didn't have a generation of parents that grew up building imports as that really wasn't really a thing yet. The youth now had that for a while. Usually the most respected cars at these shows were the custom Toyota Supras, Nissan Zs, Mazda RX-7s, and many tasteful Hondas, though there were other nice makes and models too. Nissan Skylines were barely even knew about, only seen in Gran Turismo video games we got. Our own performance magazines, or if you knew how to get overseas magazines like the Japanese magazine Option. That mag showed the car culture in Japan, and that was the base of what we were after in our own import culture in Southern California and other parts of America, since they, the Japanese, were the forefront that time for the most import performance era. As to them, it's their domestic performance industry. It wouldn't be ours in America for another 5 to 10 years through more performance automobile industry and enthusiast evolution. These days, with the internet at its all-time commonly used state, websites like eBay, Amazon, Instagram, YouTube, etc. make modifying cars a lot easier than ever before. The information is instantaneous on your phone. The parts are lower cost due to replicas being present and manufacturing being easier. The car culture simply is not what it was. Nowadays, it's either stupid intersection takeovers that seriously don't make sense and even have hurt and killed people, or it's once-a-year car shows like SEMA in Las Vegas showing highly funded builds that most people can't afford. Personal style, though it will separate you from the masses, people with a lot of money and the amount of available reputable performance car building shops make it way more possible than ever. The economy currently is inflated, so yes, it still costs a lot, but minimum wage is the highest ever. Someone these days can simply take a screenshot of a custom car on an Instagram post, go to a reputable shop that does that type of car stuff and show them the picture, get a quote for the work, pay them and wait, and have something very similar, if not the same, when it's all said and done. It's literally that easy. Back in the day when I started, that didn't even exist. You needed the right connections, you had to have logical vision, some money to fund your build, some personal style and work, and it made it all possible. The end results were always the most rewarding and something you'd never forget. So while some things remain the same, many important things change forever. My love for modifying automobiles and motorcycles will probably never die, and I hope this gives whoever listens to this a little insight to what the car culture was like then versus what it is like today. Yes, 28 years later. The end. If you made it this far, I want to say thank you guys for listening. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, share, put a thumbs up. It helps me out. And I hope you guys have a good day, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you're listening to it. And I'll see you guys on the next story time. Take care.